The Grand Judgment Hall stretched so far that its walls disappeared into darkness. Ambassador Marcus Reed stood alone in the center, surrounded by a shimmering energy field that hummed with barely contained power. Above him, 47 different alien species watched from floating observation platforms that circled the chamber like satellites orbiting a sun. Marcus kept his hands behind his back and his face calm. He had been standing here for 3 hours while the aliens argued about what to do with Earth. His feet hurt, but he refused to show weakness. The High Arbiter floated down from the highest platform. It looked like a mass of glowing gas contained inside a transparent shell shaped vaguely like a body. When it spoke, Marcus heard the words directly in his mind through a translation device implanted behind his ear. Ambassador Reed of Earth. Your planet has violated the Preservation Edict. Our scans detected a planetary defense system that activated 2 weeks ago. This technology is older than our records? Older than any living civilization. You will explain how a primitive species like humanity possesses such ancient weapons, or your world will be quarantined indefinitely. Around the chamber, thousands of alien beings leaned forward. Some had 6 eyes, others had none, some breathed methane. Others lived in liquid-filled suits. But all of them stared at Marcus with the same expression, contempt. To them, Earth was nothing. A backwater world that had only discovered faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. By accident, Marcus looked up at the Arbiter. He smiled slightly. I don't think you understand your situation, he said quietly. The chamber erupted in chaos. Translation devices sparked and failed from the volume of angry alien voices. A massive creature covered in blue scales pounded 8 fists against its platform barrier. A swarm of insect-like beings buzzed so loudly that the sound made Marcus's bones vibrate. But the Arbiter went completely still. Its glowing form flickered. What did you say? Marcus took a step forward. The containment field should have stopped him. It was designed to hold starship-sized objects in place. But the energy parted around Marcus like water, bending to let him through. 10,000 years ago, Marcus said, his voice carrying through the sudden silence, this council didn't exist. Most of your species were still primitive. Some of you hadn't even evolved yet. He gestured around the chamber. You want to know about our defense grid? It's not a weapon. It's a warning. We built it before we went to sleep. We left it there to tell anyone who came near Earth, leave us alone. We are resting. Do not make us remember what we were. A tall alien with crystalline skin spoke from the eastern gallery. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. You claim to predate our civilization? Impossible. We have records going back 8,000 years. There is no mention of humanity anywhere in galactic history, Marcus nodded slowly. That's because we erased ourselves. We wanted to be forgotten. The Arbiter's form pulsed with different colors. You will provide evidence for these claims. Of course, Marcus said. But I warn you, you won't like what you find. The Arbiter activated the chamber's central analysis system. Holographic displays materialized around Marcus, showing Earth's defense grid in detail. The technology made no sense. It operated on principles that current science said were impossible. Weapons that could fold space. Artificial intelligence networks that thought faster than light. Energy systems that drew power from dimensions that shouldn't exist. The crystalline alien, whose name was Core, began cross-referencing the technology against historical databases. The search took less than a minute. When the results appeared, Core's entire body went dark. I found something, Core said, its voice shaking. In the Forbidden's archives, ruins on 17 different worlds. All from dead civilizations, all showing the same symbol. The hologram changed. It showed ancient monuments from across the galaxy. Each one displayed a carving of a blue planet with white clouds. Earth, a young military officer from the Krell Empire, a warrior species with blue scales and sharp teeth, pulled up another file. His name was Drax, and he specialized in military history. His hands trembled as he read. There are references, Drax said, scattered through ancient texts. Always the same phrase in different languages. The sleepers. The old guard, the ones who came before. Marcus watched as the council slowly realized the truth. He felt no satisfaction, only sadness. The Arbiter accessed deeper archives, files that were sealed for reasons no one remembered. It found a data crystal in the collection, recovered from a ruin that dated back 9,847 years. The Arbiter activated the crystal. The hologram that appeared made every being in the chamber gasp. It showed a space battle. Thousands of ships representing a dozen different species attacking a single human vessel. The human ship was small, elegant, and completely black. The attacking fleet fired everything they had: missiles, energy beams, gravity weapons. The human ship didn't even raise shields. It simply existed, and the weapons disappeared. Not destroyed, not deflected. They ceased to be, as if reality itself refused to let them touch the human vessel. Then the human ship acted. It didn't fire weapons. It didn't move. Something happened that the recording devices couldn't fully capture. Space around the attacking fleet began to crack like broken glass. Ships imploded. Others aged thousands of years in seconds, their hulls rusting away to nothing. Some simply vanished, removed from existence. The entire battle lasted 11 seconds. When it ended, a single human appeared in the hologram, an older woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She looked directly at the recording device as if she could see through time to whoever would eventually watch this. "My name is Commander Elizabeth Grant," she said. "If you're seeing this, it means our civilization has fallen and someone found this warning. We fought a war. A terrible war against an enemy that almost consumed the galaxy. We won, but the cost was too high. We became weapons. We forgot how to be human." She paused, and tears ran down her face. "So we're leaving. We're going home to Earth. We're sealing our planet behind defenses that cannot be breached, and we're going to sleep. We hope that when we wake, the galaxy will have learned to protect itself. But if you disturb us, if you try to break through our defenses, know this: we will remember what we were. We will remember why you needed us, and we will remember why you should fear us." The hologram ended. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Every being present understood that they had made a catastrophic mistake. They hadn't summoned Earth for judgment. Earth had allowed itself to be summoned. Earth had come here by choice. The Arbiter looked at Marcus with what might have been fear. "You're not here to answer for violating our laws. You're here to remind us of yours." Marcus met the Arbiter's gaze. "We didn't activate the defense grid as a threat. We activated it as an announcement. We're awake now. And we need to talk about why." Drax, the Krell officer, pulled up recent reports. His face went pale. 3 days ago, a research station at the edge of the galaxy stopped transmitting. Their last message reported finding an ancient structure in deep space. It was covered in warning signs in extinct languages. They opened it to study what was inside. Marcus closed his eyes. When he opened them again, everyone in the chamber could see the weight of 10,000 years in his expression. "They found the door," Marcus said. "The one we told them never to open. The one we fought a war to close. And in their ignorance, they opened it." Alarms began screaming through the council chamber. Emergency broadcasts flooded in from the edge of the galaxy. The research station wasn't just silent. It was gone. And something was coming through the breach it had opened. Something old. Something hungry. Something humanity had fought before. The Arbiter's form flickered with panic. "What is coming?" Marcus looked up at the thousands of alien beings who had judged humanity as primitive and weak. "The reason we became weapons, the reason we went to sleep, the reason the galaxy needed us in the first place." He activated his communicator. "This is Ambassador Reed. Wake the others. Earth needs to remember what it is. Around the galaxy on a blue world that had been quiet for 10,000 years, billions of humans began to wake from the longest sleep in history." The council chamber transformed within minutes. The judgment hall became a war room. Star charts projected across the ceiling, showing the current galaxy, 50 major civilizations, thousands of colonies, trade routes connecting everything in a fragile web of peace. Marcus stood at the center with 5 other humans who had arrived through emergency transport. They wore simple gray uniforms with no weapons, no armor, no visible technology. Yet every alien in the chamber had moved their observation platforms further away. A human woman with short dark hair stepped forward. Her name was Captain Lavraven, and she moved with the confidence of someone who had commanded fleets. She gestured at the star charts, and they changed without her touching any controls. The new charts showed a different galaxy. Same stars, but different borders. Different civilizations. And at the center, a massive dark zone that seemed to swallow light itself. 10,000 years ago, Lavra began, the galaxy was dying. She expanded the dark zone. An extragalactic force called the Devourers came through a rupture in spacetime. They weren't conquering. They were consuming. Entire star systems converted to raw materials. Whole civilizations absorbed and processed. Billions of lives ended every day. The Arbiter processed this information. There is no record of such an event. An elderly human man spoke. His name was Thomas Gray, and despite his white hair and lined face, his eyes were sharp. Because we made sure of it. We didn't want future generations to know about the horror. We thought forgetting would be a mercy. Lavra continued. Humanity was already ancient then. Already advanced. We had seeded life on dozens of worlds. We guided primitive species toward civilization. We maintained peace through diplomacy and strength. We were the galaxy's caretakers. She pulled up new images. They showed the younger species from 10,000 years ago. Primitive versions of today's council races. The Krell swimming in birth pools. The crystalline Vexrothi discovering fire. The ancestors of the Arbiter's people learning to form their first thoughts. You all came to us for help, Lavar said. You begged us to save you. And we did. The holographic display changed to show battle footage recovered from ancient databases. Human ships that moved like living things. Human soldiers who walked through hard vacuum without suits. Human commanders, whose eyes glowed with internal light as they processed quantum calculations. One recording showed a human pilot whose ship had been destroyed. He floated in space, facing down 3 Devourer entities. He didn't have weapons. Instead, his body began to glow. He reached out his hands, and the space around the Devourers cracked and shattered. They collapsed inward, crushed by gravity wells that the human created through pure thought. Another recording showed a human vessel materializing inside an enemy formation. The ship didn't fire. It simply pulsed with energy, and every Devourer within a light-minute radius ceased to function. Their matter didn't explode or scatter. It just stopped being organized. They fell apart at the molecular level. Quor, the crystalline scientist, analyzed the recordings with growing horror. This is impossible. Your biology couldn't support these abilities. The energy requirements alone would burn you from the inside. Thomas smiled sadly. You're right. Our original biology couldn't support it. So we changed ourselves. We integrated technology into our cells. We rewrote our genetic code. We uploaded parts of our consciousness into quantum networks. We evolved ourselves to fight an enemy that operated beyond normal physical laws. Marcus took over the explanation. We won the war. It took 300 years, but we pushed the Devourers back through the breach they came from. We eliminated every trace of them from our galaxy. We were thorough. Drax, the Krell military analyst, studied the battle tactics. His warrior's mind recognized the efficiency, the precision, the absolute lack of mercy. You didn't just defeat them. You made them extinct. We tried, Lavra said quietly. But the Devourers weren't from another galaxy. They came from subspace, a dimension beneath normal reality. We couldn't follow them there. All we could do was seal the breach and post warnings around it in every language we knew. Thomas pulled up the final report from the ancient war. We warned future generations, never open this door. Never investigate this structure. Never try to understand what's on the other side. Just leave it alone. The Arbiter's form flickered with understanding and dread. And we opened it. We didn't know. The warnings were in extinct languages. Our researchers thought it was just another archaeological site. We know, Marcus said. We don't blame you. You couldn't have known. That's why we went to sleep. We wanted to let the galaxy develop without us. We hoped you would grow strong enough to protect yourselves. We thought 10,000 years would be enough time. A new transmission arrived from the breach site. The Council's combined military fleet had assembled. Thousands of ships from every major civilization. The Krell sent their war cruisers. The Thaxan Collective dispatched their hive ships. Even the peaceful Vexrothi contributed their gravity manipulation vessels. The fleet commander was the Krell War Duchess, a massive warrior with blue scales and 8 powerful arms. Her voice came through clear and confident. Council Arbiter, we are in position. Whatever came through that breach, we will stop it. Humanity may have protected the galaxy once, but we have advanced. We are not the primitive species you remember. Marcus wanted to warn her, wanted to tell her to wait, but he stayed silent. The galaxy needed to see what was coming, needed to understand why humanity had sacrificed everything. The fleet's sensors picked up movement at the breach. The ancient structure that researchers had opened was changing. Its metal was transforming into something organic, something alive. And through the doorway, shapes began to emerge. They weren't ships. They were entities. Masses of dark matter that existed partially in normal space and partially somewhere else. They had no fixed form. They shifted and changed, growing limbs when they needed to move, developing eyes when they needed to see. They were adaptable. They were hungry. They were the Devourers. The War Duchess ordered her fleet to open fire. Thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, gravity bombs, antimatter warheads. The arsenal of 50 civilizations unleashed at once, the weapons hit. The Devourers took damage. They seemed to break apart, to dissolve, to burn, then they reformed. The damage healed in seconds. And worse, they began to replicate. Each damaged Devourer split into 2 smaller ones. Each of those split again. The fleet wasn't destroying them. It was feeding them. On the Arbiter's flagship, panic spread through the crew. The Vexrothi science officer ran calculations. They're using our weapons' energy to reproduce. Every shot we fire makes more of them. This is impossible to fight. The War Duchess refused to retreat. All Krell vessels prepare for ramming speed. If weapons don't work, we'll crush them with our ships. The Krell war cruisers charged forward. Massive vessels built for durability and strength. They slammed into the Devourers at full speed. The entities simply absorbed the ships. The metal dissolved into their mass, making them larger, more powerful. The Krell warriors didn't even have time to scream. On Earth's orbital command station, Thomas watched the battle through real-time feeds. His enhanced consciousness processed the data faster than any computer. He ran 1 million tactical scenarios per second. Every outcome ended the same way. They're going to die, Thomas said. All of them. The entire Council fleet. Unless we intervene now. Marcus looked at the other humans. At Lavra, who had hoped never to command a fleet again. At Thomas, who had spent 10,000 years trying to forget being a weapon. At the others, each one hoping they could stay human. He opened a communication channel to Earth. This is Marcus Reed, authorization code Omega 77 Alpha, wake the fleet, all ships, all crews, maximum combat readiness. Around Earth, space began to shimmer. The light from Sol bent and twisted, and then they appeared. Thousands of human vessels phasing into reality from storage dimensions, where they had been kept in perfect stasis for 10,000 years. Each ship was black, elegant, and completely silent. They had no running lights, no identification signals. They simply existed. Lavra looked at Marcus. We're really doing this. Going back to war. Marcus nodded. We're doing what we swore we'd never do again. We're becoming weapons. In the chamber, the Arbiter watched as the human fleet assembled. How many ships do you have? Enough, Marcus said. More than enough. The question isn't whether we can win. It's whether we'll still be human when it's over. The human fleet moved through space like ghosts. No lights, no sounds, no standard communication signals. They simply appeared wherever they were needed, as if they existed everywhere at once until observed. On the bridge of the flagship Acheron, Marcus sat in the commander's chair. Around him, 50 crew members worked in perfect silence. They weren't using voice commands or computer interfaces. They were connected through a quantum neural network that let them share thoughts faster than light could travel. The Council's fleet at the breach point was dying. Only 30% of their ships remained functional. The Arbiter's flagship was surrounded by devourers seconds from being consumed. The War Duchess fought from a damaged cruiser, ordering her warriors to keep fighting even as they fell one by one. The human fleet arrived without announcement. They simply acted. The devourers surrounding the Arbiter's flagship froze. Not damaged, not destroyed. Frozen, time itself stopped flowing around them. Space cracked like glass where they floated, reality rejecting their presence. On the Acheron, a human operator named Jack Rivers focused his consciousness. His eyes glowed with internal light as he connected to quantum fields that surrounded the devourers. He wasn't attacking them with weapons. He was editing the fundamental code of reality, convincing the universe that the devourers shouldn't exist in their current form. The frozen devourers began to collapse. Not from damage, but from existential rejection. They were being unmade at a level deeper than physical destruction. Their matter didn't explode. It simply stopped being matter and became random energy scattered across dimensions, but this was only the vanguard. Through the breach, more came, thousands, and behind them, something massive moved in the darkness. A devourer prime. A vast consciousness that commanded all the others. The Arbiter was transported to the Acheron through emergency beam. Its energy form flickered with shock as it materialized on the human bridge. It watched the battle displays, trying to understand what it was seeing. "You're not using weapons," the Arbiter said. "You are weapons." Lavra stood at the tactical station, her consciousness spread across the entire fleet. She coordinated attacks that happened simultaneously across light years of space. 10,000 years ago, we evolved ourselves to fight this threat. We integrated technology into our biology at the cellular level. We rewrote our genetic code to interface directly with quantum fields. We uploaded our consciousness into networks that exist across multiple dimensions. She gestured at the view screen where human ships were engaging devourers using impossible tactics. Some vessels existed in quantum superposition, occupying multiple locations simultaneously. They attacked from positions that shouldn't be possible, firing from places they weren't actually located. Other ships used weapons that fired backwards through time. They destroyed devourers before the entities fully emerged from the breach, targeting them at points in the past where they were vulnerable. Human soldiers projected their consciousness directly into enemy formations, tearing the devourers apart from the inside by disrupting the quantum fields that held their matter together. Drax, the Krell analyst who had been brought aboard to observe, watched in awe and horror. "This is beyond anything we imagined. You're not fighting with technology. You're fighting with your minds, with reality itself." Thomas coordinated the larger battle strategy, his ancient consciousness splitting into multiple instances that existed across the fleet simultaneously. "We didn't want this. We never wanted this. But the devourers don't understand mercy. They don't negotiate. They only consume. So we became something that could stop them." Jack Rivers suddenly screamed and collapsed. Blood poured from his nose and ears. The quantum manipulation had burned out his neural pathways. The human body, even enhanced, could only handle so much reality editing before it broke. Medics rushed to stabilize him. But everyone on the bridge knew the truth. Jack would survive, but he would never be the same. He had sacrificed a piece of his humanity to save the Council fleet. Drax watched them carry Jack away. Understanding finally came to him. "This is why you went to sleep. Not because you were tired. Because this is what you had to become to save us. And you didn't want to stay this way." Marcus nodded, not taking his eyes from the battle displays. We wanted to remember what it felt like to be human. To create art without calculating tactical applications. To fall in love without analyzing genetic compatibility. To dream dreams that weren't battle simulations. So we decided to sleep and let our bodies reset. We thought 10,000 years would be enough to heal. The Devourer Prime pushed through the breach. It was the size of a small moon, and its consciousness was so powerful that it could manipulate reality across light years. Every being in the system felt its presence as a weight on their minds. It spoke, and its voice came through every communication device, every neural implant, every consciousness capable of thought. You defeated us before. You cannot defeat us again. You are fewer now, weaker. You sleep while we grew stronger. Thomas, who had seemed like a frail old man in the council chamber, began to change. His elderly form dissolved, revealing that it had been a disguise, a shape he wore to seem less threatening. His consciousness expanded, spreading across the quantum network, connecting with every human ship, every human soldier, every human mind in the fleet. He became a collective intelligence, a weapon of pure thought capable of fighting the Devourer Prime as an equal. We are not weaker, Thomas's voice resonated across all frequencies. We simply forgot why we were strong. Thank you for reminding us. He initiated Protocol Omega. It was the last resort measure humanity had developed during the ancient war. Something they swore they would never use again. The human fleet began to merge. Ships dissolved into pure energy. Crews uploaded their consciousness into a single Gestalt entity. Individual humans stopped being individuals and became notes in a vast symphony of united thought. They were becoming one unified being, powerful enough to face the Devourer Prime directly. Marcus felt the merge beginning. His consciousness started to blend with Laura's, with Thomas's, with every human in the fleet. He was still himself, but he was also becoming everyone else. It was beautiful and terrifying. He knew the truth that others didn't yet understand. Once they merged completely, they might never separate. They might never be individual humans again. They were sacrificing their very identity to save a galaxy that had forgotten them. Lavra felt it too. Marcus, if we do this, we might not come back. I know, Marcus said. But if we don't, everyone dies. The Council. The younger species. Everyone we swore to protect. He gave the final order. All ships, complete integration. Merge into Gestalt form. And forgive me for making this choice. Around Earth, billions of humans in stasis felt the call. They began to wake not as individuals but as parts of a greater whole. The entire human species started to merge into a single consciousness. The Arbiter watched in horror. You're sacrificing yourselves. Your entire species. No, Marcus said as his individuality began to fade into the collective. We're remembering what we are. We're weapons. And weapons exist to protect. His last individual thought before merging was a hope that somewhere, somehow, they would find a way back to being human again. Space around the breach became something beyond normal physics. Two impossible entities faced each other, the Devourer Prime, a vast consciousness of consumption and entropy, and the human Gestalt, a unified will of billions of minds thinking as one. They were titans clashing in a realm between dimensions. Their conflict rippled across space-time. Stars flickered and dimmed from the energy discharge. Planets billions of kilometers away experienced temporal anomalies. Hours passing in seconds or seconds stretching into hours. The Council forces, battered and barely functional, could only watch. They witnessed warfare on a scale their civilizations never imagined possible. This wasn't battle. It was gods fighting. Inside the Gestalt consciousness, Marcus still existed, but differently. He was himself and also everyone else. He felt Laura's tactical brilliance, Thomas's ancient wisdom, Jack's pain from his sacrifice, and the fears and hopes of billions. He was one note in a symphony of human consciousness, and the music was overwhelming. The battle wasn't physical. It was conceptual. The Devourer Prime tried to convince reality that humanity should be consumed, should surrender, should become part of its mass. The human Gestalt countered by asserting that humanity had the right to exist, to resist, to choose their own fate. They fought across dimensions, through time, in spaces where mathematics broke down and only will mattered. The Devourer showed them inevitable entropy, the heat-death of the universe, the meaninglessness of resistance. The humans showed it defiance, the beauty of choice, the value of individual experience. In the Council flagship, Drax watched data that made no sense. The battle was happening everywhere and nowhere. Energy readings spiked across wavelengths that shouldn't exist. Space itself was folding and unfolding like paper being origami. "They're not fighting in our dimension," Drax said. "They're fighting in the space between dimensions, where reality is made." The Arbiter tried to understand. "Who is winning?" "Both, neither, I don't know. This is beyond anything we can measure." As the battle raged, Marcus's consciousness touched something unexpected. He felt the Devourer Prime's core self, and what he found surprised him. The entity wasn't just attacking. It was afraid. It remembered the last time humanity fought them. It remembered being pushed to the very edge of extinction. And it recognized what humanity was becoming again. Marcus spoke through the Gestalt voice, and for a moment the battle paused. "You're making the same mistake. You see us as a threat that must be destroyed? But we're not your enemy. We never were. We're just people who want to live in peace." The Devourer responded with confusion that rippled through dimensions. It was a being of pure consumption. It didn't understand concepts like peace or choice. It existed to grow, to expand, to absorb. That was its nature, as fundamental as gravity or time. Thomas's consciousness rose within the Gestalt. He had an idea, dangerous and unprecedented, but possibly the only way to end this without complete annihilation of both sides. "We can't destroy you. Every time we try, you adapt and return. But what if we give you something else? What if we give you understanding?" The human Gestalt did something impossible. They reached into the Devourer Prime's consciousness and began uploading human memories. Not battle tactics or weapon specifications, but experiences. The first time a human tasted sweet fruit. The warmth of sunlight on skin. The sound of a child's laughter. The pain of losing someone loved. The joy of creating something beautiful. 10,000 years of humanity sleeping, dreaming, remembering what it meant to be alive. The Devourer Prime convulsed. For the first time in its existence, it experienced something other than hunger. It felt, and in feeling it understood what it had been destroying. Not just matter and energy, but experiences, lives, stories, meaning. The entity writhed, torn between its nature to consume and this new awareness of what consumption actually meant. The smaller Devourers, connected to the Prime through quantum entanglement, began to pull back from the breach. Uncertain for the first time in their existence, on the Arbiter's flagship, sensors showed the impossible. The Devourers were retreating. Not from defeat, but from choice. The Devourer Prime spoke one word that translated across all languages. All forms of communication. All types of consciousness. Understand. It withdrew through the breach, pulling its kind with it. And as it went, the Devourers themselves began sealing the breach from the other side. They weren't being forced into isolation. They were choosing it. Choosing to remain separate rather than destroy beings who could feel. With the threat ended, the human Gestalt faced its final and most difficult challenge, separation. Could they become individuals again after experiencing unity? Could they unlearn being one and remember being many? Marcus, still at the center of the vast consciousness, initiated the dissolution protocol. It was agony. Like being torn apart? Like losing pieces of yourself? Like dying and being born simultaneously, the Gestalt began to fragment. Ships reformed from pure energy. Crews separated back into individual bodies with individual thoughts. On the Acheron's bridge, Marcus opened his eyes. He was himself again. Only himself. The symphony had become silence, and the silence was both relief and loss. Around him, others were waking. Lavra sat up at the tactical station, tears streaming down her face. "We almost lost ourselves. I could feel it. A few more minutes and we wouldn't have been able to separate." "But we did separate," Marcus replied, his voice hoarse. "We chose to come back." That's what makes us human. Not our power, but our choice to remain individuals, to remain imperfect, to remain ourselves. Thomas reformed in his elderly shape, the disguise he wore to seem less threatening. He looked exhausted. We won? But the cost? He gestured to Medical Bay where Jack and hundreds of others were being treated for neural damage. They sacrificed pieces of themselves, Lavra said. Burned out their enhancement to save people who thought we were primitive. Marcus stood on shaking legs. That's also what makes us human. We save people anyway. Even when they don't understand what it costs us. The Arbiter materialized on the bridge, its energy form flickering with emotions its species rarely showed. You saved us. After we judged you, after we underestimated you, after we caused this crisis by opening the breach you warned against. Why? Marcus looked at the alien consciousness. Because someone needed to. Because we could. Because that's what we do. Around them, the human fleet was reforming. Thousands of ships, each one carrying crews who had just experienced being part of something greater and chosen to be individuals again. They had fought. They had merged. They had saved the galaxy. And they had come back to themselves. What happens now? The Arbiter asked. Marcus smiled, though exhaustion made it weak. Now we rest. And we talk. The galaxy needs to understand what happened here. What almost happened. And what it means going forward. He looked at Earth, green and blue, rotating peacefully in the distance. We're awake now. We can't go back to sleep. So we need to figure out how to live in this galaxy without becoming monsters. How to use our power without losing our humanity. We need your help with that. We need the Council to help us remember what it means to be people, not weapons. The Arbiter pulsed with understanding. You saved us twice. Once, 10,000 years ago, and again today. We owe you more than we can ever repay. We don't want payment, Marcus said. We want partnership. We want friendship. We want to be part of the galaxy, not its protectors or its masters. Just part of it. 3 weeks after the battle, the council chambers had been rebuilt. The Judgment Hall was now a meeting place of equals. The observation platforms had been rearranged in a circle instead of a hierarchy, with no position higher than any other. Earth had a permanent seat now. Not as defendants being judged, but as full members of the Galactic Council. Marcus stood at his platform with Lavra and Thomas beside him. Around the circle, representatives from all 47 civilizations watched. The atmosphere had changed. No more contempt, no more dismissal. Now there was respect, curiosity, and a bit of healthy fear. The Arbiter floated to the center. We gather today to establish a new compact. The awakening of humanity and the return of the Devourer threat has shown us how little we truly understood about galactic history. We thought ourselves advanced. We were children playing in the ruins of a civilization we couldn't comprehend. Drax spoke from the Krell platform. Humanity saved us. They sacrificed their peaceful sleep, their very individuality, to protect us from a threat we created by ignoring their warnings. We owe them a debt that cannot be measured. Marcus raised his hand. We don't see it as debt. Yes, we saved you. But you gave us something too. You gave us a reason to remember our humanity. When we merged into the Gestalt, when we became a single consciousness, we used your memories to teach the Devourers what they were destroying. The Council's diversity, your different cultures, your unique perspectives, they became the argument that saved both us and them. The War Duchess, her body still bearing scars from the battle, leaned forward. What do you want from us, humans? What can we offer beings who can reshape reality with thought? Lavra answered, help us remember how to be individuals. We spent 10,000 years sleeping to forget being weapons. We spent 3 weeks as a Gestalt consciousness, and it was beautiful and terrible. We need you to help us stay human. Share your art with us, your music, your stories, your cultures. Remind us that power isn't the only thing that matters. Quor, the crystalline scientist, pulsed with understanding. You want us to teach you? The species that predates all of us? Thomas smiled. You've had 10,000 years to develop without us. You've created things we never imagined. Your music uses frequencies we never explored. Your art expresses ideas we never considered. Your philosophies approach problems we never thought to question. You're not primitive. You're different. And that difference is valuable. A small alien, covered in soft fur and speaking in melodic tones, addressed the assembly. But what about your technology, your weapons? Will you share them with us? Marcus considered the question carefully. We'll share knowledge, but gradually. Not because we don't trust you, but because you saw what our technology did to us. We became so focused on war that we forgot peace. We'll help you advance, but in ways that don't require sacrificing your humanity. Or whatever equivalent your species has. The Arbiter proposed a new compact. Humanity will join the Council as equal partners. They will share their knowledge and history. In return, the Council species will help humanity reconnect with peaceful existence. We will learn from each other, no species above another. No civilization judging another. Just partners exploring the galaxy together. The vote was unanimous. Every species agreed. Over the following months, changes spread across the galaxy. Human teachers went to council worlds, sharing technology but also learning from each civilization they visited. Human artists collaborated with alien musicians, creating forms of expression that neither could have achieved alone. Human scientists worked alongside council researchers, discovering things that both groups had missed. On Earth, cities that had been sealed in temporal stasis were opening. Billions of humans were waking to a galaxy very different from the one they left. They had to learn about 47 new civilizations. They had to understand 10,000 years of history. But they weren't alone. Council representatives came to Earth as teachers, as friends. As partners. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Acheron, watching Earth rotate below. The defense grid was still active, but its purpose had changed. It was no longer a warning to stay away. It was a beacon of welcome, an invitation to approach, to trade, to share. Lavra joined him. Having second thoughts? Always, Marcus admitted. We could have stayed asleep. Let the Council handle the Devourers themselves. They would have died, but we could have remained human. But we didn't, Lavra said. We woke up, we fought, we saved them. And we chose to come back to ourselves instead of remaining as gods? I think that says something important about who we are. Thomas arrived, carrying a small plant in a pot. I've been learning about Vexrathi gardening techniques. They grow crystals that sing in solar wind. It's beautiful. I'd forgotten how to appreciate beauty without analyzing its tactical applications. Is it hard? Lavra asked, remembering how to be human. Every day, Thomas said honestly. I wake up and my first thought is tactical assessments. Where are threats? What are defensive positions? How do I optimize for survival? Then I remind myself I don't have to think like that anymore. I can think about what I want for breakfast, about what music I want to hear, about what makes me happy. Marcus nodded. Jack Rivers is relearning too. His neural damage means he can't edit reality anymore. He says it's frustrating and liberating at the same time. Frustrating because he remembers the power. Liberating because now he can focus on other things. He started painting. A communication came through. It was from Drax, the Krell analyst. Ambassador Reed, we found something in the deep archives. Another message from your people. From the time before you went to sleep. Would you like to see it? Marcus accepted the transmission. A hologram appeared showing a young human woman in a garden on Earth. She looked peaceful, happy, free from the weight of war. My name is Jessica Park, she said. I'm recording this on the day we begin the Great Sleep. I want whoever finds this to know we weren't running away. We weren't abandoning anyone. We were choosing to be human again. To remember that we're more than weapons. More than warriors. We're dreamers. We're artists. We're lovers and friends and parents and children. We're people. She smiled. If you're watching this, it means we woke up. It means the galaxy needed us again. I hope we remembered who we are. I hope we saved you without losing ourselves. And I hope you'll help us remember why being human is worth choosing. The message ended. Marcus looked at Lavra and Thomas. She was right. We did save them, and we did remember who we are. Now we just have to keep remembering. Below them, Earth turned in space. On its surface, humans were waking, learning, growing, living. They weren't weapons anymore. They were people with the memory of being weapons, and that made all the difference. The galaxy had forgotten why disturbing the sleepers was a mistake. Now they remembered. But more importantly, they learned why humanity chose peace over power, why they sacrificed godhood for individuality, and why that choice was the most powerful thing of all. In the end, humanity didn't conquer the galaxy. They joined it, not as masters but as partners, not as judges but as equals. They proved that true strength wasn't in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to create, to help, to remain human even when becoming something more would be easier. And the galaxy was better for it. Retriclog can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.